answered in kind. 61. There is no ceiling to imagination. There are those who possess a formidable degree of self-awareness, and there are those who move through life with scarcely a glimmer of it. This is not an insult. It is an observation. Some have been initiated, often through discomfort, into the discipline of looking inward. Others have been trained, subtly or overtly, to avert their gaze from their own interiority, as though the self were contraband. Many of us were taught to fear our true self. That instruction is incoherent. You walk with yourself each day, truly, to fear your own shadow. And yet, the longer one refuses to turn toward that shadow, the larger it appears. Not because it has grown fangs, but because it has been left undefined. Leave anything undefined long enough, and the imagination will inflate it. Eventually, the unattended corners of the psyche begin to feel populated. People say their demons are bearing down on them. I say, bear down on them back, not with frenzy, with composure, with jurisdiction. For many have unconsciously enthroned fear as their master. But fear is a poor sovereign. In fact, it is not a sovereign at all. It is a signal. The amygdala, that small almond-shaped sentinel in the brain, is tasked with alerting you to potential threats. It is efficient, rapid, and necessary, but it is a fraction of the entire temple. If you owned a vast castle, you would not appoint the gatekeeper as a monarch. And yet, this is precisely what many do. A signal becomes a dictator. An alert becomes an ultimatum. You cannot follow two masters at once. There is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear, not because danger ceases to exist, but because authority is restored. Fear was never meant to be enthroned. It was meant to be interpreted. Sometimes the amygdala becomes overtaxed. It has been on patrol too long. It has mistaken every rustle for a predator. In such cases, you must tell it to rest. This may require more conviction than comfort. Sometimes you must let fear complete its arc. Sit with it until it exhausts itself. But there are circumstances in which to display fear prematurely is to relinquish leverage. There are moments where if you become riled, you have already ceded the reins. So often we are reacting to external validation, social cues, micro-expressions, tonal inflections, before we have even consulted ourselves. But reaction reaction is not obligatory. Between stimulus and response lies a pause. In that pause is sovereignty. External validation is a starving maw. You may feed it endlessly, and it will not be satisfied. What you receive in return is transient, an ephemeral glow that dissipates almost as soon as it is felt. To chase approval as though it were sustenance is to live in a loop of depletion. You give, and what returns is vapor. This does not mean you disregard what others think or feel. It means you do not become enslaved to the oscillations of their perceptions. If you are perpetually calibrating your being to avoid rejection, you are not living. You are negotiating for oxygen. Often, if something does not feel right, we proceed anyway. Why? Fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disapproval, fear of being misunderstood. There are moments when playing a part can be strategic. There is nothing inherently ignoble about temporarily adjusting presentation to gain access to opportunity. But if you confuse the performance with your identity, if you mistake the mask for the face, you have subverted your own trajectory. Some people become entangled in naming things evil, demonic, cursed, without examining the mechanics of their own fear. They grant disproportionate authority to phantoms. The imagination is a prodigious architect. It can construct sanctuaries or labyrinths. When left unattended, it often does both. These imagined specters can linger in the recesses of the psyche for years, gathering intensity simply because they have not been examined. Then, one day, the dam is full, and the person says, "My demons are bearing down on me." Bear down on them back, I say. You are the light in the room. You are the vivacity of your own spirit. Do you truly wish to allow an unexamined projection to govern your conduct? You are the authority, always. Either you delegate that authority to fear by your own consent, or you reclaim it. That reclamation is what many traditions attempted to articulate when speaking of sin. Not groveling, not theatrical remorse, simply noticing. I aimed here, I landed there. That was not alignment. Adjust. Where were you aiming? Where did you hit? Was this endeavor worthy? Did it yield what you sought? If not, refine your footing. This is not condemnation. It is calibration. Shame unrequired. Recognition necessary. There is an old insult. Go kick rocks. But If you kick rocks long enough, you develop muscle memory. Do you think muscle memory is stupid? You learn balance. You acquire dexterity. You can traverse terrain that once destabilized you. Is muscle memory foolish? No. It is embodied intelligence. Sometimes someone tells you that you cannot do something, and spite becomes your catalyst. You attempt it simply because they doubted you. That defiance can be generative, but others internalize the limitation. They accept the pronouncement as final. They install an imaginary ceiling above their own potential. But there is no ceiling to imagination, nor is there a floor. True love has no walls. And again, there is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. When fear dominates, blood is redirected from prefrontal cortex, the seat of discernment and foresight, back to the amygdala. Reaction supplants reflection. Fight or flight eclipses nuance. Some are raised in environments where vigilance is necessary. Their amygdala must remain acute, vigilant, on edge. That adaptation is understandable, but if one chooses to remain in perpetual vigilance, one forfeits access to higher faculties, creativity, magnanimity, strategic foresight. You were fashioned for more than reflex. Free will is sacred. It is not theoretical. It is operational. You are the captain at the helm. You may set the vessel on autopilot, but you installed the autopilot. If you have forgotten that, consider this a reminder. I am not your commander. You can think of me as an officer, noting that you have been navigating an asteroid field unnecessarily, when a slight adjustment upward would yield clarity. Fear is not doom. It is an alert. You are the manager of that alert. When you ask yourself, does this feel right? And your answer is, if I don't do it, something bad will happen. That is fear speaking. When your answer is, if I don't do it, I will feel guilty. That too may be fear masquerading as morality. The more pertinent inquiry is this aligned with my integrity? Does this cultivate peace? Does this expand my capacity? Many were taught to fear sin, but fear was never meant to be the foundation of moral development. It is a survival mechanism, not a compass. That's what you have a heart for. But it's hard to hear its tender whisper if you have handed the reins of your temple to the amygdala. We are not typically outrunning predators across savannas. The threats we face are subtler. Social exclusion, perceived inadequacy, imagined catastrophe. The body reacts as though claws are present. But you must interpret the signal. If the magnitude of change feels overwhelming, if you see every step at once and feel inundated, remember, you only have 2 feet. 1 step is sufficient. The mountain always appears insurmountable before the first movement. After the first step, it is simply terrain. If anger arises when you reflect on how arduous it has been, examine whether fear has blistered into indignation. Redirect that energy, not by suppression, but by transmutation, through focus, through intent. Don't forget, you can utilize your voice to guide your mind. You already do. Perhaps unconsciously. How sloppy. Tighten your belt, Captain. You are the one piloting that vessel. Some dismiss the notion of energy, but few deny the palpable atmosphere of a room. Emotional climates are real in their effects. Tend to yours. If you struggle to identify your next step, document your trajectory. Write where you have been. Write where you intend to go. Then delineate the smallest viable action toward that direction. You need not perpetually walk in thorns. And if you insist upon traversing them longer, at least equip yourself with boots. You deserve a clear path. It need not be as arduous as you have imagined. And if you are tempted to argue, to insist it must be hard, notice that impulse too. You are already proficient at issuing yourself commands. Perhaps issue a different one. Pause. Reclaim the reins. Hone your craft. Kick rocks until you dance among them. There is no ceiling to imagination, unless you deem there to be one. You are the one wearing the badge. Act like it, but don't let me tell you what to do. Fear is already doing half the work for you. I am not the captain of your vessel. You are.